Welcome to Time Well Spent. I'm Ronald. Happy New Year, y'all. So typically this is the time of year we consider bright new beginnings. We start our New Year's resolutions and we think about what we plan to accomplish in the time to come. I'm generally an optimistic person, so I always make plans for the best case scenario. However, I've come to realize that with expectation comes disappointment. This is all a part of the goal setting process. At the end of last year, I spent some time thinking about my disappointments and began to ponder the idea that heartbreak boils down to a deep form of reflecting and adjusting to the realization that your expectations won't be met. The hardest disappointment to face comes when you fall in love. Love defies our logic and makes it hard to be rational in relationships. I've found that while I can adjust quickly through most personal setbacks, the disappointment that comes from the expectations in relationships is a difficult adjustment to make. Personally, I prefer to hear the bad news first. So to kick off the new year of the show, I want to step back and play for you 3 stories of heartbreak in relationships from folks who lived through the pain of missed expectations. I'll let them introduce themselves.
My name is Anna. I was married for almost 4 years, but we were in a relationship for almost 8.5 years.
Bree. I dated my ex-boyfriend for almost 3 years.
My name is Andrew, and I was in a serious relationship for 6 months.
I remember sitting in my English class. This was a summer class, so it was a condensed class. So I think it was about 8 weeks, and we met once a week. I remember sitting in the back corner of the room, and a couple minutes after class started, Alex walked in, and I was like, whoa, who is that?
Okay, so we started off as acquaintances. He was a bartender at a bar that I regulared. He was actually on his lunch break, and I saw him studying for a Security Plus certification. That's an IT certification, which I had just failed. So I had all these study materials, so I just kind of approached him oh, that's really cool. I didn't know that that's what you were into. And he was bartending because he was going through a career change. So I think the first reason why we kind of clicked is because we both worked in technology. We both had that similar interest. So that was kind of what took it from just being at the bar and me ordering drinks with him to actually getting to know him a little bit more.
I was getting sick and tired of online dating, but I met with someone that we clicked as far as sending each other text messages. And then from there, it started to develop into something where we were both interested in pursuing something serious. The first date I remember clearly. I always enjoy eating, so my biggest thing is let's go get something, grab something to eat, whether pupusas or tacos. And then from there, I kind of I did suggest dancing, since I enjoy that, and she didn't hesitate.
We sat next to each other every single class, and when I would sit up, he would sit up. If he would slouch, I would slouch. So we were kind of mimicking each other's body language, which was really funny. And then at the end of class, the last day, I was like, I'm going to say something to this guy. I'm going to go up to him, and I'm just going to ask him how he did in class or whatever. But I chickened out and I didn't say anything. So I called my friend up and I was like, what do? I need to talk to this guy. We've been sitting next to each other. We've barely talked, but I feel like I need to say something. And she was like, do you have his number? No. Well, you have his email address. So I sent him an email, and all I said was, hey, do you think you passed the class? And I sent it, and immediately I was like, you dork. Why would you say something like that? And he responded right away and was like, yeah, I think so, but here's my number. Let's text about it or something like that. And I was like, whoa, okay, well, that worked. And then a week later, we went on our first date. He picked me up. My mom was peeking out the window. I was like, oh my gosh, Mom, don't embarrass me. I mean, it was over the summer, so it started off as a summer love type of thing, which was great.
Everything was fun. I think when you have those butterflies in your stomach, you enjoy spending quality time with one another. You instantly text each other as soon as you get their text. There wasn't anything or any thought behind it. It's more of enjoying the moment and enjoying the time. That's what I remembered the most from the beginning stages of the relationship.
We knew a lot of the people on the bartending staff, so it would be like, hey, we're all going to this. Once your bar closes, you guys should come. So we had done that a couple times, and then that was really how we started hanging out outside of the bar a lot. I actually specifically remember he just called me his girlfriend in front of one of my friends one time, and like I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm your girlfriend now. And it just kind of happened really quickly, I guess, because things clicked very quickly. You know, being a little bit older, I think he was more into, so either we're going to do this or we're not.
I remember the day he asked me to become his girlfriend. I went to the beach that day with my mom, and when we came back, Alex was at my parents' house, and he was like, come outside, I have something to tell you. And I was like, okay, like, I hope everything's all right. And we had just been dating for not a very long time because it's still the summer. And he just wrapped his arms around me and he's like, I have to tell you a story. And I was like, okay. And he just started talking about some fantasy princess story. And the way he talked about it, the way he talked about the princess was like, I was the princess. And he wanted to treat me like a princess and eventually a queen and blah, 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 blah. So he was like, long story short, pretty much, I would like you to be my girlfriend. I want to be in a relationship with you. I want to treat you like the princess that you are and the way you deserve to be treated. So obviously I said yes.
I think I moved in with him after dating for like 4 or 5 months. There was definitely a spark there that happened very quickly, but also I was already going through some roommate problems and was ready to move out. Our lease was going to be up. So I think it was like, well, if we're dating and we're going to kind of make this a thing, like why not do it? It seemed right at the time. So for me, I had never lived with a significant other before.
One of her friends said to me, so are you going to make an honest woman out of her? And I was like, oh, what do you mean? Which, you know, I knew what she was getting to. And I realized, okay, you need to step forward, be sincere, be honest with her to let her know exactly your true intentions moving forward. So I did have the honest conversation. I asked her, listen, I told her I enjoy my time, spend my time with you. It's obvious that my friends like you. If you haven't noticed, my family likes you as well. But I feel like this could be a potential for something serious moving forward. How do you feel about that? As soon as I told her how I felt, kind of, you know, looked at her facial expressions. If she was dumbfounded, like, okay, maybe it's not the right time to tell her that. Or, whoops, you know. But I waited for her response. And if her friend wasn't a clear indicator that she wanted a relationship with me, she was like, yeah, dude, like, what do you expect?
When Alex proposed to me, I knew it was coming. Mostly because the day he proposed, my sister, she was like, your nails look really bad. Or I think she said something like, you need to change your outfit. You don't look cute at all. I was like, what is she talking about? Okay, I'll change my outfit. We went to the National Cathedral in DC. And It had just recently snowed, so there was just, snow everywhere. And we went up all the way up to the top. And I was like, he's going to propose to me here. And then it didn't happen. And I was like, what? Okay, maybe I was completely wrong and he's not going to propose. So then we went back down and he was like, I need to go to the restrooms. And he was in there for a while. I was like, okay, either he ate something really bad or he's really nervous. And then he finally comes back out and he's like, oh, I think there's a gazebo out back. Let's go check it out. I'm like, how does he know there's a gazebo out back? So we walk back there and there are 2 people in the gazebo. And I was like, why does that look like your friend? And he's like, what? I have no idea what you're talking about. And I was like, no, that looks like Ed. And he was like, Anna, I seriously have no idea what you're talking about. I was probably making him more nervous. So I just stopped talking. And then we walk into the gazebo. His not friend still had his back faced towards us. And then he was like, oh, look up over here. So I looked, and then he stood behind me, and I could hear like ruffling around, like he was moving really quickly. And I was like, okay, Anna, when you turn around, he's probably going to be on his knee. And then I turned around, and there he was on his knee. And he was like, I brought you here because the top of the cathedral is the highest point in the city. And I wanted to show you that I've had my highest and my lowest points with you. And I want to share the rest of my life with you. And blah, blah, blah. Will you marry me? Whatever. He proposes. And then he's like, this isn't actually the ring. He was like, it was supposed to be ready before Christmas, and I was going to propose to you right before Christmas, but it's still not ready, so this is why it's been taking me so long. But you're going to get your actual ring in a couple days. And then, oh yeah, it turns out it was his friend who was there, and he's a photographer, so he captured the whole thing. So that's how he proposed, and then that was on a Sunday. Then on Tuesday, we went to the courthouse and got married. Alex was in the military, or he joined the military not too long after. So we got married right before he left for basic training.
He was really big into hockey, so we would go to a lot of hockey games. My dad was big into hockey, so I went to them a lot growing up, and I played sports, so sports was a big thing. Him being a bartender, he was, and I love food, so we went to a lot of restaurants. Like, that was something that our friends were super into as well. When we traveled somewhere new together, that was something that we were both doing for the first time, and we were doing it together. So I think we always had a good time kind of exploring, and, I like to plan things, and he liked to be more laid back, so, I could plan the stuff, and he would just come along, so it kind of worked out with, what we like to do, personality-wise.
When I would see him succeed, and when I saw him graduate from basic training, when I saw him graduate from AIT, which is training for like a specific training for the Army, and I saw how well he did and how he got a bunch of awards and things like that. Whenever I would see him succeed in his career, that was always a high point for me, because I thought about how he was sacrificing his time and his body for us to have a better life. And I mean, I feel like school isn't for everybody, and I think he really found that the military was for him, not school. And so I was very proud of him whenever he accomplished something, whenever he would get an award, whenever he would get promoted. It was a good time for us. So it made me very proud of him and very happy to call him my husband.
I got laid off from my job. When I invite my partner on dates, it's in my head that I have to be there supportive of her. And that was a scary thought and process for me. At that point, even worse was when I didn't feel or have the energy to get out of bed. I was questioning my worthiness. At that point, I kept applying for jobs, and each time the same rejection. Thank you for applying, or you're too overqualified. That kept eating me inside as a human, and I felt like I was slowly bringing that into my relationship, which I didn't want to. That's when I knew I either had to leave or do something drastic.
I think because we got married right before he left for the military, I knew that my life was going to change. I knew that his life was going to change. I just didn't know that his personality was going to change as well. And I think maybe I was a bit naive in thinking that he was going to remain the same. But after he joined the military, he just sort of became more and more and more of a recluse. So he was just shutting down all the time. He wouldn't really talk to me about his feelings. And I mean, he was a very shy person to begin with. But I mean, I would communicate with him all the time how I was feeling, even if it was like the good, the bad, all the in-betweens and everything. And he would just, I think he has a hard time explaining how he feels, to the point where it didn't happen often. So our expectations of each other was to respect each other, love each other. You know, the basic stuff that you expect out of any relationship. But I would say as soon as he joined the military, he changed.
I think when it became pretty clear that it wasn't going to work was when we had been together for a while, and I started asking, like, hey, you know, you've been taking these classes, you've been interested in this, you know, when are you going to take the step from going from, you know, being in the not entertainment, but like food and beverage and hospitality industry, bartending, to, you know, corporate job, working in technology, you know, whatever he's going to switch into. But I think when it became pretty clear was that he didn't really have like the drive or the ambition to actually make that switch. And I felt like I was really pushing him along the way. And I think what frustrated me was that he was 7 years older. So I always, in every aspect, expected him to act like he was 7 years ahead. But when it comes to his view on, you know, higher education and joining the workforce, it was just very different than mine. I think that was pretty difficult for me because I'm a very ambitious person. You know, I like my job. I like working in the corporate world, and I own a business, so that keeps me really busy. So when other people like aren't as involved or in things as I am, like that was hard for me to rationalize and like see his side a lot. So I think just that made it really difficult. I think when I was more so pushing him to make that switch was really hard on us together.
It might have been mutual in the sense that I told her how I felt. I told her that I wasn't strong enough to lead the relationship, that I felt like I was carrying this level of toxicity that I didn't want to seep into our relationship. It was a lot. It's something that I explained to her, and I was being honest, after that, I think she took the initiative. What hurt me the most on how it ended, I found out through social media. I remember she was going through her own personal issues. I went to visit her that day to cheer her up, dropped her off breakfast that she wanted, and then I kissed her on the forehead and kissed her on the lips and told her I loved her, and I made my way to work. At this point in time, I was working at a restaurant. I got a notification on Facebook that we were no longer listed as friends, or that she was following me on Facebook, and I thought that was kind of awkward. I checked my Facebook account. We were no longer connected as friends. Instagram, she had blocked me off Instagram. Snapchat, the same thing. So all social form of social media. I called her. It went straight to voicemail, and I called her again. And just the way I'm talking to you is exactly the same way I left her a voicemail message. I told her that I didn't want to assume things, and I want to know exactly what's going on in her head. I called her again. She responded an hour later, saying that I have to get up to work early the next day, but I sent you a what's up message. See, the thing is, I remember it clearly because I kept rereading it over and over and over again. I have it ingrained in my head, and I still have the message on my phone. She felt like the relationship was becoming toxic, that she didn't appreciate the way that we've been arguing the last couple of weeks, that at the end of the day, that I hope that I become the person that I was when we initially dated. And at that point in time, someone with financial stability, right? Someone without that much worries going on. And that as much as she cared about me, she knew that this message would hurt me. That at the end of the day, she loves herself, even though she does care about me. But she felt like this is the way she had to go about it as far as a breakup. And that there was no point in me trying to pursue her because she was not going to change her mind. And I left it at that because at that point, I'm not going to persist or be persistent with someone that doesn't want to be with you.
I don't remember really bringing it up in one instance. Like, there was multiple instances, and I couldn't tell you what the first one was, but he definitely brought it up. He was much more vocal to bring up things than I was. So, I mean, that's a credit to him because he had some pretty good communication skills that I lacked. But I think that helped us because I wasn't ever going to say anything. I always waited for him to bring it up. So lucky for me, he did. And he was able to recognize kind of how I was acting a lot. So he made it easier to kind of have that conversation because it wasn't like I felt like I had to bring something up. He kind of already sensed it and then would kind of start that conversation. It was that Thanksgiving that we still went on another trip together when it was what kind of felt like a last-ditch effort almost. And then we had a great time. And then, we came back and we didn't have any more conversations. And then, after when you kind of pretend like things are okay, I feel like it like unravels even faster after. So like the next fight was just, huge. But I remember the one where like we actually decided to break up and like he was acting weird. I think it was like after his birthday. Like he just seemed very distanced the next day. And it was like, well, what's going on? Like I just planned this awesome birthday. And he was like, we need to break up. He was like, I don't think you love me. And he was just like sitting there on his laptop. And I was like, well, we can't just have this conversation because we have 2 cats and a dog together. We live together. And we have lived together for about 2 years. So this is going to have to be a more in-depth conversation than just you being angry or annoyed and saying you want to break up. And he was actually on his laptop typing up a list of things that he owned in the house and things that I owned in the house. So before we even actually broke up, like he had already started like preparing for him to be moving out.
I remember, because I noticed that there was something wrong, I remember trying to do things that would make him feel better. So, I would cook for him. I would, draw baths for him and just like help him relax. I tried to do things that he would enjoy and be appreciative of, but he just didn't really show that he was appreciative of those things. I think he just thought of them as like basic stuff, but he was just fading more and more and more. And I think the last thing that I tried to do, because we didn't have a wedding, so we didn't have a honeymoon, and almost 4 years into our marriage, so that's over 8 years of being together, I was like, we should go on a trip. So I found a really great deal for a cruise. It left out of Baltimore. It was a 9-day cruise. I was like, great, this is going to be like the honeymoon we never had. And I think it was a big try for me and for him. He later told me that it was more like a test because he felt like he didn't want to stay married anymore. And I think I was just trying to do everything to make it work. And he was testing me at this point, which sucks because I didn't know I was being tested. And just, a month or two before, he was away for training for a whole month, and he would text me all the time about how much he wanted to be with me and how happy he is that he has me and how supportive I am of everything. But during our trip, he just wanted to stay in the room the whole time. He brought his video game with him and was just playing, and he didn't want to go swimming or do whatever. And I'm like, we spent this money to enjoy our trip, and all you want to do is stay in the room and play your game. And he, at one point, he actually wanted to leave early and was looking up how to get out of the trip. And I was like, oh my gosh. So that made me really upset. And I think, that night when we got back, that was when I talked to him because I noticed how he was being. And I just said, I noticed that you've been different. And on this trip, you would isolate yourself and you didn't really want to be with me. So what's going on? And he wasn't talking as usual. He wasn't really communicating with me. So I had to say, do you think we'll stay together? And he said, no. So that was it. We had this thing where before we got married, we wouldn't joke about divorce. We're like, we're not going to joke about it. We're not going to bring it up because that's a serious thing. If we're going to joke about things, it could be anything else except for that. So that night I said, do you want to get separated and just take some time away and figure out what we want? Or do you want to actually split up? And he was like, I want to get divorced. So to me, I knew, and I wasn't going to beg him to stay. If he had already made his mind up, there was nothing I can do to change it. And I tried for months to make sure that he was okay. So if he was serious about it, then that meant that he had thought about it for a while, and even though he didn't tell me, and that I just had to accept and respect his decision and move on.
There are times I do reminisce about the relationship that I had before, but I look at myself to see exactly where I am now, whether physically and mentally, and I'm doing better because I'm seeking the assistance that I need. And once again, going to my therapist, right? That's an important part of the process. Doing the things that I enjoyed doing before, doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on my own, playing soccer again, going out dancing. These are things that I enjoyed doing for myself, that really I'm taking care of me. And that's an important part that I felt like I didn't because I gave that other person too much of my time. It's not a bad thing, but once again, it's always good to have what you did prior to that relationship and to continue having that individual self. Not to say that's selfish, but it's self-care.
It helped me kind of realize like what I actually do want out of a relationship and what I don't want. And it's not things that he had or didn't have or things that I wanted or didn't want, but it kind of made me realize like what was important to me and, how do I find those traits in a person and how am I perceiving myself and how do I make sure I'm clearly, communicating what I would want out of something and how do I make sure that I'm, I never asked him, how are you feeling? Or I never asked him, well, why do you want this out of life? Or why don't you enjoy this? So I wish that I could help the other person, vocalize their feelings as well. Because it's easier, I think, when someone else is asking you than when you have to be upfront about it. So not only being more upfront myself, but also being that person to, really initiate the conversation and see how the other person's feeling a lot.
Now, a little over a year later, I wouldn't say I'm dating. I'm going on dates. I think it's a little different, but I'm getting to know people beyond just like the surface level stuff. And if something doesn't feel right, or if, a guy just isn't right for me, I can just be like, okay, great, we can be friends, but this is it. Like, I don't have to immediately become boyfriend and girlfriend with the first guy I date.
I guess the comfort I take from this cycle of resolutions and goals and work and disappointment is exactly what Anna just said. You don't have to do things the same way the next time around. With every new disappointment comes new wisdom. With new wisdom, we can face the reset of the New Year's clock, knowing that we can do better. Special thanks to Anna Kirby, Bree Hannafin, and Andrew Robles for sharing their stories with me. This episode was made in partnership with Juliet Hinely at The Listen In, a new residency and resource for creative audio makers. To learn more about the residency, visit thelistenin.org. That's TheListenInn.org. Heartbreak is a hard path to navigate, and for some of us, the journey is a little longer than others. But be armed with the knowledge of knowing that you won't be stuck here forever. If you embrace the lessons you learn, then instead of thinking of the hard path as time wasted, you'll think of it as time well spent. Time Well Spent is a production of OhitsBigRon Studios with help from associate producer Lizzie Peabody. Theme and additional music by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. Outro music from Michael Corte. If you like the show, please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. That helps us find our way to the ears of new listeners. If you really want to support us, then consider becoming a patron of the show by visiting patreon.com/OhitsBigRon. That's Patreon.com. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at OhitsBigRon. That's OhitsBigRon. Thanks for listening to Time Well Spent, the podcast that nobody asked for, yet somebody is listening to. We'll be back soon.
When do I talk about the cheese thing?
I don't even know if we're going to get there. Good God. All right.
I think going from bartender to boyfriend, I expected like way more free drinks and free food, but I'm just kidding. Don't say that.
Hey guys, my name is Andrew Robles.
Cut the hey guys.
All right. Like this is like a serious conversation.
Or I'll just hold it very gracefully.
Just don't spill it.
But you know what? I feel like if I do, it'll just add for, dramatic effect. It'll be great.
So you think you're the producer now?
No. I'm trash. That's not cool, Ronald. But you know that I'm a very, somewhat creative person. I try to be.
All right.
Yes.
So